Hello and welcome to a bonus episode of the League One Lowdown here on the Deck Podcast Network. I am Jamie Johnson and joined, as always, by my review show partner, Seb Jones. But today, a little bit different. We're doing a preview show, as we talked about on our latest episode. We talked all about the weekend games, and now we're going to look straight ahead to the midweek games. And we're not going to waste any time because a full roster of fixtures in midweek, and we're going to go in detail on 6 of them and then briefly mention the other 6 come the end. And we're going to start with the big top of the table clash, Seb, and it is the one that's got the prime TV slot, the 8 p.m. Huddersfield against Birmingham. First versus fourth. It's a really huge game, this one.
Yeah, massive game, really. Two teams full of quality, full of experience in their rankings, just full of good League One players amongst both sides as well, and both sides that have been on a tremendous run of form recently, and also across the whole season, and are both fighting for that automatic promotion spots as well. This is set to be very tasty game for sure. 8 o'clock. The rest, of course, are a quarter to 8, but this one 8 o'clock on Tuesday night. So I'm not surprised this one was sort of picked to be the main one. Really, lots to go off. Huddersfield coming into this one after defeat, really. Losing to Bolton, I think a result no one quite saw coming. Obviously, we delved into that a little bit deeper in our review show, but they'll be wanting to make sure that they bounce back as quick as possible. But it's going to be very tough ask to fight against Birmingham of all teams. Really, they're probably one of the best teams in the league. If you want a result, to bounce back from a poor result yourself, a team you don't want to face is Birmingham. But that's what Huddersfield have got. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge, really, for Huddersfield. But Michael Duff will set them up well, and it's an uphill. It's a challenge, really, for Huddersfield for sure.
Yeah, this is a really sort of important game. I know Birmingham, that they haven't lost since November 3-2 at the shock result away at Shrewsbury, obviously, and they've not lost since. And it's like a sea of green, really. They drew last time out away at Wrexham, and they're now facing another of those big teams at the top, again, away from home. Huddersfield, though, I think for me, the important thread of this game is the fact that Huddersfield, as you mentioned, need to bounce back. But on top of that, they need to close the gap, because those top 3, there is danger that they really pull away from Huddersfield and they aren't able to keep a grasp on a potential automatic promotion.
Yeah, absolutely right. In that Huddersfield have got to keep tabs on it. Really, at the minute there's 4 points between Huddersfield and Wrexham at the time. I believe that's right. But they've got to, in terms of Huddersfield fighting for that automatic spots, they've got to really, they've just got to keep going. Huddersfield just keep sort of knocking on that door. They're, as I said, 4 away from Wrexham, who were in 3rd, but 7 away from the automatic spots. Wycombe occupying that last automatic spot. So they've just got to keep going. Really, Huddersfield they're probably the most likely to challenge alongside Wrexham. Just keep knocking on that door, keep picking up results, and this would definitely be a big result, even if they just got to draw Huddersfield, because it just closes that gap. But you've got to aim to beat the teams around you, really, and it will help close that gap if Huddersfield can get anything from it, really. They've got to just keep going, Huddersfield.
No, I agree, and at home you really. You probably expect a victory, as much as obviously they're playing top of the league and it's never easy, and why would it be? But Huddersfield, if they want to keep pushing for automatic promotion, you mentioned that obviously 4 points behind Wrexham, they are at 7 behind the automatics. As you said, Seb, the game in hand, but that Birmingham have a game in hand on them. Birmingham have an extra couple of games less, and they can really sort of pull away with those couple of games. But Huddersfield, they were 16 unbeaten before defeat at the weekend. Against Bolton, of course. So it is an important one for them in terms of how they react to that surprise defeat against managerless Bolton. But that is the big one of the week.
I don't know if that sort of 16 perhaps tells a full story. I think if you take the last 4 prior to that Bolton defeat. They only got one victory in that one, and that was against Wycombe, who are themselves are pushing for automatically. The rest in that four were draws against Blackpool, Rotherham, and Burton. So yes, they're unbeaten, but probably just too many draws really to be properly challenging. I know we've spoke about this in a previous episode, but there's too many draws within that. So yes, it's 16 unbeaten, but probably too many draws in that one that Michael Duff would have liked, and really enough to challenge properly. Whereas if we look at Birmingham, they're unbeaten in their last 5 and only one draw in that, and that draw was the result against Wrexham that we saw on Thursday. All of those other ones are wins in all competitions, that is. So I guess that is just a contrast really in terms of two teams that have similar calibre, and one is just managing to pick up wins and solidify their automatic spot, and one is just behind that trying to chase the pack in that top 2, top 3 ish. So Huddersfield, I've just got to keep going. Birmingham, they're the dominant force of the league really. Wrexham did well to sort of peg them back to one apiece on Thursday night, and they'll just be hoping that another side in this top 4 can't do the same. But Birmingham, we all know the quality Birmingham possess. And they're second away from home in terms of like the league table form. So they've got the second best away form in the division. So I'm sure they've got history on the side in terms of grabbing a result at St John's.
Well, you mentioned Wycombe in there, and they are the next team we'll move along to. They are second, 2 points behind, top of the league Birmingham, and 3 points ahead of Wrexham, who occupy the top playoff spot. They host Barnsley in another big game. There's a lot of this is the reason really why we're doing this bonus episode. There's so many huge games at the top and the bottom. We're going to focus obviously at the top at the minute. Wycombe, they're the other side to their form. Before I pass to you on Barnsley and reflect on them, is that they've one loss in last 6, which is obviously a good run of form, but it's not been imperious by any means. They've won 3, drew 2, and lost 1. So they've only won half of their last 6 games, and for a team up the right end of the table, that isn't exactly ideal. But they host Barnsley on Tuesday night, Seb.
Yeah, for sure. And Barnsley themselves not on a great run of form. They went on a really good run around the sort of Christmas, New Year, start of 2025. With good results against Bolton, Peterborough, Wrexham, and then Crawley finished off that got a good run of form. And since then, we 2 back-to-back defeats, 1 Bristol Rovers away, and then obviously on Saturday, a 1-0 defeat to Stevenage, and that was a bit of a poor game, that one really. So they'd have probably wanted that to finish 0-0 really, because there just was not a lot of quality on display in that one. But Stevenage got a last minute winner, and ultimately sort of it's even more of a test of character to come back from that. So they have to show that Barnsley actually statistically have been better away from home. So I'm sure that will benefit them. They're the 3rd best away side this season in the league so far. So they've got that to their advantage, and they're going to hope that will sort of, I guess, propel them in order to pick up some sort of result, but it'll not be easy for the Reds. Wycombe are on a good run of form, as you said, second place at the minute, even though they have been a little bit inconsistent. 2 wins from the last 5, 2 draws and a defeat in that as well. That defeat against Huddersfield, so it's not inachievable, the fact Barnes are breaking them down. It'll just be a bit of a challenge for the Reds.
Yeah, they're one of those teams that can beat anyone on their day, but they'll be looking, a win here could leapfrog them back above Stockport, who themselves leapfrogged Barnsley at the weekend. They play Shrewsbury though at home, so you expect a victory for them. And Barnsley, obviously, you don't expect much when you're playing a team like Wycombe, who are second, and they haven't dropped off much. I mean, Matt Burnford obviously moving on. They haven't. You expect perhaps a little bit of an avalanche, at least momentarily, but they haven't felt that at all, and they're still in the mix. They're still second, and they're still doing very well. So they'll be hoping, at the very least, that they can continue that vein of form, even though Barnsley are a tough visitor, because you mentioned their away form, and that is an important aspect of it. If they could play as well at home as they do away, they'd be a little bit higher up the table, even though they are still in the playoff spots. The last of the real top teams in the table is obviously Wrexham. They're in third, and they are at home as well against Stevenage, who you mentioned. Obviously, got that last gasp winner against Barnsley. Sorry to bring it up once again.
Again, you know,
But they're unbeaten at home still, top of the home table. With 39 points from 15 games. Only them and Birmingham haven't lost at home, but Wrexham played a couple more at the Racecourse Ground. They're doing really well themselves, aren't they? Last time out was a draw against Birmingham, obviously on that Thursday night game. So the other aspect to this as well is they have an extra couple of days rest. And we didn't mention that in terms of Huddersfield Birmingham, but it's the same for them too. That they played on Thursday as opposed to Saturday. So they've had an extra couple of days, whereas these teams, Stevenage and Huddersfield, have had the usual Saturday to Tuesday turnaround, a couple of extra days. Do you think that makes a difference in these two games?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, the preparation for that earlier game will be slightly changed, but I think, yeah, they've got a few extra days on the training ground. A rare Saturday off, which I wonder if they'd have brought the players in anyway to have a day's training instead of the usual match. But they didn't have a match. So yeah, I think that will help. Extra time to work on ideas, set piece routines, shape, formation, etc. And I think it will definitely help. I think because the fixtures have been so thick and fast, especially around that winter period, around the festive season, I think it's good for them to just have a few days extra. I don't think we'll go that amiss really for any side. Really, it just happens.
It's always a benefit, isn't it?
Exactly. It just happens to be that two of probably the best sides in the league have got that advantage rather than anyone else. So maybe a little bit unfair in that regard. But ultimately, yeah, they've got to use it to their advantage. They've had a few extra days. There've been more players have been more well rested when it comes to playing. And more time to work, as I said, on the training field as well. So, yeah, definitely an advantage in terms of having those extra couple of days playing on the Thursday rather than the Saturday.
The curious bit with Stevenage is they're away from. They're 15th in the table, but if you look at it just away games, they slipped to 18th with only 2 away wins all season so far. However, it gets even more curious than that because they've scored 4 goals away from home all season, and they've only conceded 8. So, I mean, you read that and you read it as this is Stevenage. They go away from home. They're just going to sit back, absorb pressure, which they've done really well. Obviously, that 1-0 victory at Barnsley before that against Leyton Orient too. They've back-to-back 1-0 wins on the road. And that is half of their goals away from home this season. And they'll be hoping they can replicate that a little bit. And that really is what you have to do against a Wrexham, especially at home. Wrexham, as we mentioned, are so indestructible. You've got to be able to sit back. You've got to be able to absorb the pressure. And if Stevenage can manage that, keep it at 0-0 for as long as possible, there's no reason why they can't go and pinch something. And it's these sort of games, even all the stats are pointed in Wrexham's direction with their good home form, it's these sort of games that could spin in the opposite direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that just about sums it up in terms of only 4. Yeah, as I said, 4 games away, 4 goals away from home this season, and 2 of them have come in the last 2. So that probably sums up Stevenage. They're going to frustrate Wrexham for sure. They're going to sit back and go for the draw, really, and anything extra will be a bonus. Just going to sit back, 11 men behind the ball, just frustrate Wrexham, because we know Wrexham like to play free-flowing, attacking football, and Stevenage will just not have any of that at all, as was evident when I saw them at the weekend facing Barnsley. They're just not. They don't give you any time. They don't give you any space. They're a clever side. They're just awful to watch, and it's so frustrating as a fan. As watching that as a one-off, it was frustrating for me. Never mind if you were following Stevenage, but Wrexham will certainly feel the disruption from Stevenage. They're going to go with intent. They're going to go just to sit back, keep the clean sheet. Anything extra is a bonus, and they got that at the weekend in the last minute. And yeah, I think a 0-0 for Wrexham is almost like 3 points itself. So hence the poor
for
away
Stevenage,
form.
you mean?
For Stevenage, sorry, for Stevenage. A 0-0 for Stevenage, like 3 points. So Wrexham will face a tough challenge, but it's finding a way around that and coming into that one earlier, the extra couple of days will help them sort of come up with different scenarios, different plans to help get around the horrible Stevenage back line, and I mean that in a nice way. They're just so
they're hard to play against, isn't it? It's a compliment
exactly
as much as it is. I mean, they'll be delighted when teams talk about. So you face Stevenage and you go, "What an awful game! It was so dull. It was so sort of turgid." But that's what they want. That's how they play football, and it gets them points. And he's got them a couple of wins on the road over recent weeks. I believe all 5 of their draws away from home have been goalless as well. Don't quote me on that one. But I believe that is the case.
Right. It does sound about right.
It tells you all you need to know, doesn't it? And they can do that against Wrexham, a team who are obviously so good at home. Only 3 times have they drew at home, the rest victories this season. So tells you all you need to know. It's an uphill battle for Stevenage, but if anyone can do it, it would be them. So we're going to head to a very quick break, and then we'll be back to reflect more on the teams down the wrong end of the table in the second half of the podcast. Welcome back. Then switching focus towards the relegation zone and to Burton Albion. They are hosts for Reading, and this is 2 teams, Seb, who come into the game on opposite ends of the form table. Because Burton, can they make it 3 wins in a row? That is the question, with victories over Rotherham by 4 goals to 2 and Wigan just before that of late. And Reading, though, they have 3 losses in a row. It's an interesting one because you look at the table and you think the team lower down, they're the team coming into us with the better form.
Yeah, well, exactly that. Yeah, it's 2 teams on opposite forms, but 2 teams on opposite ends of the table. So, not quite matching up as you would have thought it to be. Burton have picked up some great results of late. You know, unbeaten in 4 of the last 5. The only defeat came 1-0 against Northampton in that one. But in that one, they've got draws against Crawley and Peterborough, and then the past 2 results have been victories against Wigan and Rotherham. So, you know, they are slowly going away. Gary Boyer, since taking over, has done a great job with them. Just picking up the pace slowly are Burton, doing a good job. The opposite is probably the case for Reading. Seems to have taken a bit of a turn. 3 defeats in a row in all competitions for them. It's not looked great. The last one being Leyton Orient at the weekend. It's not looking great, really. Under Noel Hunt's tenure. It'll be frustrating to be Reading fan. You know, so much delight really in terms of the first half of the season. You know, up in the top 6 challenging, which, you know, pretty surprising. And then since then, it's sort of been a bit, you know, downhill. Ruben Sellers going, this results not quite being picked up the same as it was at the first half of the season. Noel Hunt yet to really sort of, take control and show fans what he's capable of doing. Certainly an interesting one. Burton have got the home advantage, and Burton at home have been okay of late, really. Although the thing that will disappoint them is overall haven't kept a clean sheet in 8 matches, and that for a team battling that sort of low down in the table, that will annoy them. Max Crocombe, the number 1 at Burton, is ranked 3rd in the saves per match, 3.4 on average per game, which I guess is good that he's keeping the goals out, but bad that
it shows you he's being called upon.
Exactly, yeah, bad that he's being called upon so much. Burton getting a clean sheet, I think, will be the next step. It's all one good picking up these victories, but actually, a clean sheet is almost as good as a victory, especially for a side like Burton battling in the position that they are.
Yeah, I mean, Reading, as I mentioned, 3 losses in a row. The bridge between that and their 3 straight wins was a draw. So they've really sort of gone transferred from a patch of green to a patch of red in terms of the form table. So Reading will be hoping, though, that they can step onto the right pedal. They are just the 1 point off the playoffs, where Burton obviously 1 place from safety, 6 points the gap between them and Northampton, who travel to Bolton Wanderers on Tuesday night. So it's 2 teams, as we mentioned at the very start of talking about this game, that are on the opposite ends of the form table and are fighting for very different things. So it's one of those games. It becomes an interesting one to talk about and to watch because it's 2 teams scrapping and clawing for points for different reasons. And another team scrapping and crawling for any point they can get hold of is Peterborough United. Obviously, a dreadful run of late for them. Just 3 points available, picked up from the last 24 available. that being 8 league games without victory. They host Wigan Athletic, who have been a little bit inconsistent over recent games, very mid-table form. Though this game, as much as I apologise to Wigan fans, it's all about Peterborough, because that is the story going into it surrounding Darren Ferguson in particular, who called out his players after the Lincoln defeat that we talked about on our usual review podcast. A couple of quotes from him speaking to BBC Radio Cambridgeshire. This is without doubt the quotes that were posted on their social media feed. This is without doubt the softest group of players I have ever managed. And my record of looking after this club is as good as anyone's. This is on the players. It's not what you want heading in. I know we obviously spoke about what that means perhaps for his job, but it's not what you want heading into a game, such a quick turnaround, because this game was on Saturday. You imagine it's Sunday off, in the training ground Monday, in the training ground Tuesday morning, or meetings before the game Tuesday morning. For a game on the Tuesday night, there's not a lot of space in between those words and those players getting back out on the pitch.
Yeah, there isn't, and they're at home as well, which probably just adds to the frustration. You know, the home fans will certainly make themselves known about about just the way that performances and results just haven't been great as of late, and I'm not surprised if they are to make their frustrations known to Ferguson. But yeah, certainly not a lot of time in between. Yeah, as you said, those comments being made and to come back and get the results in just a matter of days as well, it's going to take a lot of character and yeah, a lot of courage and to step up and to use those comments as a bit of sort of fuel to improve on performances and results. And I don't know if it's almost too short of space of time, really. We mentioned this on the review one, that those sort of words can go both ways. When a manager says those sort of things, it can either be used as a motivator to spur players on, or it just does the total opposite and just makes things worse, and it just sort of things spiral down. And I fear that's going to be the case with Peterborough, especially as we mentioned, with just a short turnaround in this one. So, yeah, it will be interesting. You know, only one win in the last 5 in all competitions, and that was an EFL Trophy knockout game against Walsall. So, yeah, not really succeeding in the league as of late. So, definitely a concern for Peterborough.
Yeah, a friend of mine, a Peterborough fan, that I spoke to him after the game on Saturday, and the words he used was terrible. Was this sort of one-word description? He said it was a mixture of Peterborough being that bad and Lincoln being all right, which is as bad as and Lincoln won 5-1. So it tells you just that little summary there of someone who was at the game shows you how bad really that Peterborough were in that one. That Lincoln not firing all cylinders, but have put in a fantastic performance and won 5-1. But Peterborough, they're only 6 points above the relegation zone. They are firmly in a relegation fight, and there is no getting away from that, really. And much as it's Peterborough, and of course they'll stay up, they'll be fine. It's they're a team that should be up the top end of the table. They are now in a relegation scrap, and they need to pick up points. They're 6 points behind Wigan, who are in 16th themselves. They've got to be beating teams like Wigan. You've got to.
Yeah.
I think we've got to forget now the name attached to that team, and we've got to think about where they are in the table. And a team just above the relegation zone need to be beating the teams below them and the teams just above them. And Wigan is one of those that fall into the latter. So this is a really important game for Peterborough, and perhaps for Darren Ferguson himself too.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. You know, Wigan have been in a good run of form as of late, and it's almost a bad time for Peterborough to be facing them, because Wigan are on a good run of form and Peterborough aren't. But Peterborough need to get a run of form, get some sort of results, and yeah, it's not looking good for Darren Ferguson. But he'll want to pick up a result against Wigan. Wigan obviously 2-0 victors last time out against Bristol Rovers, and actually recently picked up results against Stevenage and Mansfield as well. So they've got a bit of momentum behind, a bit of history in terms of recent results. And they'll be hoping that well, from a Wigan perspective, that they can add Cambridge to those that they've managed to defeat. But Peterborough, yeah, will want, no matter what, they'll want 3 points in the league, and just to help them get away from the poor position that they are in the league table. It's poor, 19th place, 27 points from 27 played. It's not really what we expect from this Peterborough side that we've seen in recent years. So disappointing, and they want a result ASAP.
Exactly that. And the final game we'll go in detail on is the game I will be at on Tuesday night, which is Lincoln City against Blackpool. Lincoln just fall off the playoffs and Blackpool just fall further back than that. It's two teams who are hoping to keep themselves in that picture. Obviously, we know things can turn around very quickly, as Lincoln proved themselves last season, that a good run of form can put you in the mix out of nowhere almost. And these two teams will be hoping to stay in there themselves. Lincoln, it's back-to-back victories for them against Northampton and Peterborough, the latter, the first home win of 2025. Impressive, as Michael Scribala said, without the ball. In the press, he was most impressed with his team, how they pressurised Peterborough off the ball, as well as obviously their quality with it, with 5 goals and a few real peaches in that 5. Blackpool, the interesting point to bring out of them is about Bloxham, one of their January signings. But before we get on to that, the game itself, I think this is quite an interesting one. I'm looking forward to it, as much as obviously we've talked about games high up the podcast that are probably scream off the page, don't they? They just like ooze quality and goals. This one, I'm not expecting lots of goals, but I'm expecting a really good and a really perhaps consequential game of football.
It's only saying that because you don't want it to be a ball 0-0, do you?
Finish 0-0 now.
Yeah. No, in fairness, it should be. It's got all the makings of Blackpool are unbeaten in their last 5. The only issue with that is that they've only had one win in that, and that was the most recent result away at Exeter. So they've got a little bit of momentum behind them, I guess, in terms of going on this unbeaten run. That actually includes draws against Wycombe and Birmingham, obviously the current top 2. So that is good from a Blackpool point of view. From a Lincoln point of view, as you've said, sort of 2 wins on the bounce. It's looking good. A clean sheet in that as well. They'll be disappointed to not grab a clean sheet in that Peterborough tie where they've won 5-1. I think that was probably the only downside to that result. But yeah, it's a team on a good run of form recently against a good run of form against the side on a good run of form for a certain amount of time as well. So yeah, 2 teams. I think it will be a good one. Really, I agree with what you're saying.
It's 2 teams, as you mentioned there. To just summarise that, is that I'll pass back to you obviously in a second. That they are 2 teams who are over recent weeks starting to point in the right direction, even though they're just on the very crest of the wave, if you like.
Yeah, for sure. And both teams have scored 7 in the last 5 as well. So both can grab a goal. It's not as though they're Stevenage. They just sit back and not to sort of jab at them again, but they're not going to sit back. Both sides have got to attack. Both sides have got options in attack. One of which is Bloxham that is sort of got to a flying start for Blackpool, 2 assists and 1 goal in just 2 games since signing from Shrewsbury for Blackpool. And I think he'll be sort of a main focal point as well. Lincoln themselves have just brought in James Collins, who scored off the bench. So certainly, strength and depth at the top end of the pitch for both teams. And I reckon that, we are in for a good one, a good game in terms of this one.
Yes, well, we're giving it the podcaster's curse enough already there. But yeah, you mentioned Tom Bloxham, I beg your pardon. He's got more assists in these 2 games than he did in all of the first half of the season at Shrewsbury, just the 1. But he did get 4 goals in 27 all-competition appearances. He's got a goal as well, as you mentioned already, for Blackpool. So he's really hit the ground running. It has been a January signing that has already proved his worth and has proved a bit of quality for Steve Bruce's side. The other side of the January signing is obviously James Collins. We talked about in a little bit of detail on the review podcast about him scoring on debut. The other addition being Sam Clucas for Lincoln, not involved as of yet. I'll be hoping to see, sort of speaking in the pre-match, Michael Squall, if he gives any indication of if he will be playing Sam Clucas, making his re-debut for the club. He's only made 1 appearance for the club, that back in 2009 against Darlington in the EFL Trophy.
Wow.
But he's ready to make his second appearance for Lincoln City, however many 15, 16 years later. So maybe he will do that on Tuesday night. We'll have to wait and see on that regard. But those January signings, that could potentially be the story of the game. With James Collins, he could be in line for a start after coming off from the bench and scoring. You expect, obviously, you ease these players in, don't you? You give them time to bed into the system before you throw them in. the deep end, but he scored off the bench, so perhaps a start for him. And Tom Bloxham as well, obviously, has been the star of the show since signing on the dotted line for Blackpool. We've mentioned, obviously, we both think it's going to be a good game, so we all expect that to be 0-0 now.
Yeah.
But it, at least on paper, looks a good one. Elsewhere, Bolton Wanderers, they host Northampton Town, looking again, Bolton, to carry on that energy and that performance from Huddersfield. A 1-0 win away from home under the interim trio. Can they go one step further and do it against Northampton Town, Seb?
Yeah, I think so. I think they've got the need. I mentioned this on our review episode that they need something to turn it in their favour, and they got that result at the weekend. And yeah, just sometimes all you needed is change of manager. The players have seem to just fight for the badge a little bit more, and I guess under Ian Evatt, it just didn't seem to be that, especially in sort of the latter stage of his tenure. So yeah, I certainly can do. Northampton are in a struggling position, and Bolton can take advantage of that for sure. And at home as well. Hopefully, the home fans will get on board with sort of this interim trio that have taken charge. And yeah, definitely, I think Bolton have got an advantage in this one for sure.
As well as that, Charlton Athletic host Bristol Rovers. Exeter City play host to Leyton Orient, who are on a stellar run of form themselves. 9 clean sheets in 10, I think it is, as we talked about in the review episode. Mansfield Town will be hoping to bounce back after surprise defeat to Cambridge United. They host one of the other strugglers in Crawley Town, and the bottom side, Shrewsbury Town, travel to Stockport County. Back-to-back wins for Stockport. They're up into 5th. And playing the bottom side of the division here. They were unlucky, though, to lose against Charlton, as we mentioned briefly on the podcast, our latest podcast. They'll be hoping, though, perhaps that they can do a similar thing, and they'll maybe go that extra step further. They had it at 0-0 until the 95th, 96th minute, I think it was, and that's as much as you can hope for, really, isn't it? Away games against those teams up the top.
Yeah, for sure. You just got to keep against those sort of sides that are at the top. You just got to keep battling and hope that something will fall for you. Ultimately, it wasn't to be, but they can go again and just keep battling hard. That's all you can do. And they are tough opposition, but you've just got to hold your ground well, be firm, and yeah, just hopefully get lucky. And yeah, they'll hope that they can go again this time round.
And I'll give you the final word, Seb, as the 12th and final game of Tuesday night is Rotherham United against Cambridge United. That is another big one. Rotherham will be looking to close in on that playoff chasing pack. They've got a bit of ground to make up in that regard. And with the defeat we mentioned against Burton Albion on the review show as well, in the rearview mirror, they'll be hoping to put it in the rearview mirror, I should say. In Cambridge, they want momentum, a draw and a win. On a decent mini run, they'll be hoping to extend that. This is another one of those games that is interesting because it's a team pushing towards the top, looking for points for that reason, and a team looking to get out of relegation and looking for points for that reason. Yeah.
So two teams wanting points for different reasons, really. Rotherham, we thought, had sort of hit a good run of form, but clearly that was disrupted by Burton Albion at the weekend. So they'll want to bounce back quickly from that one. Whereas Cambridge have got a bit of momentum themselves after a draw and a win in the last two. So yeah, two sides that will want points for varying reasons. And it's been both sides on form, but Rotherham, I guess, the side in this one to suffer defeat the latest. So yeah, Rotherham obviously a home advantage. So a bit interesting this one for sure. That's the case all over really. Lots of sort of interesting, a lot of top v bottom battles that maybe this time last week you would have thought were going one way, but because of results on Saturday, could go another way as well. But yeah, that's the nature of this league. Anyone can beat anyone, especially this season. It's not like we've had a breakout, top 8 or something like that. That was the case last year. Things are pretty close this year, which is good to see.
And even the team at the very top has lost to the team at the very bottom this season in Birmingham against Shrewsbury. Yeah. So it shows exactly what you say there. The old adage, anyone can beat anyone. And if you want reaction from the midweek games as well as a look ahead to the weekend, Sam and Callum on the preview show will be able to do that for you towards the end of the week. And then myself and So we'll be back in our usual slot, reviewing rather than previewing. We're back to our day job, if you like, this time next week. So thank you for joining us on YouTube or on whatever podcast platform you have been with us on. Do remember to subscribe and stay notified with that little notification bell on YouTube and on whatever podcast platform you are on. Remember to follow along. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next week on the League One Lowdown.